Hello and welcome to the Michael Mamas Show. I'm your host, Michael Mamas, coming to you from Mount Soma in the mountains of western North Carolina. Mount Soma is home of the Sri Sameshwara Temple. And today's Scott Davalos is off, but Adrian Dewey is back. So, hey, Adrian,
Hey, good morning.
how you doing?
Great.
Yeah. So you got a little break there, but it's good to have you back.
Thank you. It's good to
Yeah.
be back.
Yeah. Now, today,
Enjoyed the
actually,
downtime with the kids. It was great.
yeah, that's good. I'm happy for you. And
Yeah,
boy, you got to make time for that.
you do. You do.
Otherwise, the years just go by. I see
They do.
families coming to Mount Soma and they're there with their kids, and I always tell them, boy, they grow up fast.
It's a
Uh,
blink.
yeah, yeah. I remember with my daughters, it was like I remember one Halloween. Oh, let's go to the pumpkin patch, and I had a lot of work to do here, getting Mount Soma going. It was a major amount of work.
Yeah.
So I said, oh, I can't. I'm busy. I have to work. You guys go ahead. I'll go next year. They're different. A year later, they're bigger.
Yeah.
Every year is unique, and you got to enjoy every year, every season, every holiday.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
I wish I'd really, you hear a lot of people say that. Oh, they were too busy working. Especially
Yeah.
self-made people who were no one born into a bunch of money, don't really have to work.
Right.
But
Right.
you hear them say that they just whiz right by, and they wish they enjoyed their kids more.
Yeah.
And
I think it's a really common thing,
yeah, it
you
certainly
know.
happened to me, and I have a lot of regret around it.
Yeah.
I think in my life, I looked back, I never regretted anything. I mean, I
Yeah.
wasn't perfect in every way, but I was a good man, and there were little things here, little things there, but it's like that's just no big deal, perfectly
Yeah.
human. So I
Yeah.
could say I never had any regrets, but
Yeah.
now when I look back at that, I regret it. I wish I had more time to spend with my kids, even
Yeah.
though I don't think I could have. I mean, with Mount Soma, starting Mount Soma, building Mount Soma, which is, by the way, the topic of this podcast is Mount
Yeah.
Soma. Um,
Yeah.
but I just didn't have the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
the title is the Mount Soma story, and it's a really it's a remarkable story. Um, and I think it's one thing to understand a lot of these Vedic concepts, and particularly now with Mount Soma, we're building this enlightened city, which I'll talk about, and the principles involved in that, and uh, the mechanics of the whole thing. And you hear about it, and oh yeah, okay, I understand that, I get that, but boy, to live through it, it's astounding. Really, it just, oh my goodness. And so these principles, to actually see them at work, it's humbling. It really is humbling. Um, when people come here and visit Mount Soma, I mean, it's great. Especially, I love it, especially like on summer days when the weekends and the temple is packed, and the community center, the little playground area there, the hiking trails, the student union, everything's just tons of people everywhere. And even from up at my house where I live, I can hear all the people playing and the children laughing. And it's just, I feel like Walt Disney. It's just so fulfilling to provide people that experience. Um, but people ask me when they come to visit, the two most common questions. Number one, I think, is what inspired me. What is it about me? Some white guy. And how do you even know about all this? And what inspired you to build Mount Soma? And the other question is just, the people are curious about the history of it, what it is, and then when they hear about our plans, they're intrigued, because we've done quite a bit, and I don't know, what do we have now, 400 or 500 acres, I guess, and we've developed a fair amount of it, and their homes here, and again, the Union Community Center Temple. When we bought this land, it was just forest, with a few logging trails through it, and that was it. So we put in the roads and built all these buildings and subdivided the lots, and people moved here. And so it was a lot. It was a lot. Uh, but they asked me what inspired me to do it. Well, to really answer that question, I have to look back at really all the way back to my childhood. I've mentioned, I think, before that my favorite picture of me as a little kid, I was 5 years old. If that, I guess I was 5. And I remember this. I was the house I grew up in. I was had my hands behind my back, and I was walking pensively and walking around the house. And I was thinking about, I mean, this sounds far-fetched, but it's the truth. I was thinking about the world and the world situation and all the challenges in the world and what to do about it. I remember my brother, when I was a little older than that, he used to tease me, said, the weight of the world, the weight of the world. You carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. But when I was doing that, when I was a little kid, my aunt was visiting and she saw it and she thought it was so cute. She ran outside and took a picture of me. And I have that picture just in the other room right now. So I was a pensive little kid, a reflective little kid. And I'd have to say that's really was the beginning of Mount Soma, that attitude. And so I got older and I went to college. And at the college, I majored in physics. Actually, I had a double major in physics and math. And the reason for that was I wanted to understand life. I wanted to understand, what all this is. I had heard some philosophy classes, I think, therefore I am. How do I know this is really my hand in front of my face and it's not just an illusion, kind of like what was portrayed in the movie The Matrix, if you've seen that. But I thought, the physicists were the ones that were really pursuing the answer to those questions. So I went into physics, and I loved physics. I was the top of my class. It was, quarter after quarter, semester after semester, if you will. I could not show up for the final exam and get a 0 on it, and I'd still have the highest grade in the class, even if the next highest grade guy got a perfect score on the final exam. So I don't mean to brag, but I mean, it was just, I was really, really into it. And, but then I remember when I realized seeing some of my professors and they'd have their little nervous tics and stuff. And I thought to myself, physics isn't going to do it. It's not the be all and end all. There's more to it, And so that was hard for me. Even physics and math, I loved math and physics, but it was like breaking up with a girl that you loved or something, it's hard to do. But I realized it wasn't going to answer the questions I had. So I remember it was in the autumn. I know it was in the autumn because I remember at nighttime with the street lights and off campus, is where I lived. And I'd be walking the streets at night with my hands behind my back, just like that picture. And wondering what was next, where I was going to go, and what did I really know, really pondering it all. Is there anything I really knew? Descartes didn't work because I think, therefore I am. Well, I think, therefore I think I am. How do I know this body isn't part of an illusion? That kind of thinking. So at any rate, I drew some conclusions, and then I moved into another off-campus house, just a short walk from campus, but a lot of students live there. And I moved into this one house, and there was a guy in the kitchen, and for some reason we started talking, and I told him my conclusions. I was sitting at the dining table, and I said, there has to be one thing that everything is coming out of, because otherwise, how could you take math and apply it to physics? How could music and math and physics have such similar principles, I guess even though I didn't know about Siddhartha at the time, kind of like in the movie or in the book, Siddhartha, where he says that he kind of got enlightened by watching water flow down a stream and everything is the same. It's all interconnected, And I said that so there has to be one thing out of which everything comes. Otherwise, how could it all be so interconnected? It's all got to be the same. Different things like that. And he said, if you're into that kind of stuff, he said, you should go study with the Indian. Oh, and I said nothing. I said, somewhere out there, this is very interesting logic, I think. I said, somewhere out there, there have to be a group of people that know this because it's truth. And it fascinates me that, it was a feeling, And in the previous podcast, I talked about how the world has to have 2 poles to spin around. There's always got to be a North Pole. There's always got to be a North Star. Pure knowledge has to dwell somewhere on the planet. That's the idea. One component of that idea. And so not even knowing all that theory and everything, I just said that somewhere they have to be. And he said, well, if you're into that kind of stuff, he said, you should just go with the Indian, go study with the Indian gurus. He says, they know all about that stuff. And I couldn't believe it. I jumped up, and I didn't mean to, but I knocked the chair on the floor. I was so excited. I said, I can't believe it. I said, I thought it was going to take me years to find them, you know? And so I think it was less than 6 months later, I was with my teacher, Maharshi, and everything changed, you know? He was great. He was a great teacher, you know, great man. And so I was in his ashram. After I finished the university and that, some of their whole story, but it doesn't matter. Then I became a veterinarian. I had my practice for 6 years, but there's a little light inside me that never flickered, you know, and I just knew that was where I had to be, and it was with Maharshi, you know. So I had my practice for 6 years. I sold my practice. And even that's an amazing story. There were 3 practices around me that were for sale, and mine was for sale. And these other practices have been on the sale for years. And, you know, it's hard to sell a vet clinic, you know. And there was a course coming up where Maharshi was going to be in Europe. And I was committed to going to that course. And I remember I told my attorney, I said, we have to sell all this and I have to get out of here because I have to go there. And he said, you can't do that. He said, it takes too long. You can't do it. I said, I'm going to do it. And I remember one morning I woke up and had an A-frame house with glass up high, you know, and the sun was rising. And I didn't even, back then, I didn't know about Surya or any of that, you know. But I saw the sun and I just put my hands together and I prayed, you know. It was a deep connection. You could feel it, you know. And sure enough, somebody came along, bought the clinic, and a few months later, I was at Maharshi's feet. And I remember I asked him, these are all long stories, I'm making them short. You know, a few more years, I'm a veterinarian. If I quit now, I don't have the degree. What do I do? And he just took his hand. He went, go with it for a while and then branch away. And his hand, and I can still see his hand just as clearly as in the moment he did it, you know. And so that's what I did, you know. I didn't think about it during those 6 years. I didn't think about it. I had a practice. I was working, you know, but still that little light was on inside of me. And I remember I was sitting on my bed in my house. And one morning it just hit me, you know, it's time to go. And that's when I did that prayer and told my attorney that, and I was gone, you know. And so I was with Maharshi. I joined what's called Purusha, the ashram, you know, if you will. And there was a guy there. And he talked about an enlightened city. He said somewhere in the Veda, I don't even think he remembered where, but there's a section where, and I don't even know how he knew this. But he said there's a section of the Veda that talks about an enlightened city and explains how to build it. And that just stuck with me. I mean, that was back in 81, maybe 82. And so it was years later in 94, after I finished with the ashram and started my own school. And that's another long story. But to make it short, my students, even back in 94, when I started the school, recalled to this day, oh, I remember when you talked about building a enlightened city. I said, really? I did? So it was in 2002 that I actually raised the money. And there were some things I remembered. The elevation, which is the elevation of Mount Soma, the slope of the land. I think that was about it. Maybe there were a few other parameters, but, you know, the basic parameters of what you need to have an enlightened city. And so I bought the land. I remember I had people, you know, we all threw in land and they were going to get a lot after we developed it and subdivided it, which happened. But I remember there's a road that goes up and then it goes around and it curves and then it goes a great distance more. And then So there are a lot of roads that built beyond that curve. But before we got to the curve, I remember I was out of money. All the money was spent. And I mean, talking about sleepless nights, you know. I still remember one night I woke up in the middle of the night, and I was just so much stress. I just put my head in my hands. I was shaking my head. What am I going to do, you know? And I remember I had a lecture I was going to be giving in Rhode Island. And so I got on the plane, you know, this was several days later. I got on the plane, several days of agony, you know, and tormenting later. And it was a flight to Rhode Island, was through Detroit. So I flew to Detroit, and I remember I even got on the phone with somebody working with me, helping me at the time. And I said, maybe we just have to sell the land and get these people their money back, all these people that put money in, you know, what are we going to do? And then I remember I was standing there, we were getting ready to board the plane, and I heard this voice. And it was like the voice of God. It was like, Michael. Went like that. Michael. And I looked up. I looked up. And then I heard again, Michael. And I turned around, and it was Lyle Bowes, a dear friend. He was a student, and they were flying to hear my talk, my lecture, my class I was giving in Rhode Island. And he wanted to talk, you know, and I think, as I recall, we may have even sat together on the plane. I can't remember even. But I told him, you know, how we were hurting, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And son of a gun, you know what he did? How much do you need? I told him, well, 30,000. I think we could survive for a while. He wrote me a check. If it wasn't for that, I don't know what would happen, you know. He just gave me 30 grand, you know. And then I remember that was just enough to carry us over, and then we sold our first lot, and so we had money. So I continued to build the road, and before you know it, got completed. Then people donated, you know, to build the different buildings, the Student Union Community Center, I forget what order. And then I remember thinking, oh, I remember this whole time I was trying to find pundits who could tell me how to build an enlightened city. I mean, it's in the Veda, and they know the Veda back and forth. Do you know that none of them could tell me anything? Oh, we don't know what you're talking about. I said, yeah, it's in the Veda, enlightened city, you know. And so I had to proceed. And so I thought, well, it'd be good to have a Shiva Linga, I thought, right in the middle of town. That just made sense to me. So I thought, you know, we could build a garage and put a Shiva Linga in it and just have something, you know. And one thing led to the next. Different people stepped forward, donated, and we got money together. And then we found a Stapati who, you know, that's a Vedic architect. He was from South India, devotee of Ganapati Stapati, which was, he's deceased now, Ganapati, but he was the most famous Vedic architect in India, I think, at the time. And we got the money together, and they engineered this thing with ancient Vedic tradition precision. So we built this big, huge granite temple, beautiful temple. And so that from our garage, it went to a Shiva temple, which exists today, Sri Someshwara Temple. And you can go to srisomeshwara.org and read all about that, you know. And so when people ask what was my inspiration, I remember Maharshi, my teacher, once said, he said, just think of something great and go out and do it. He said that to everybody, you know, just think of something great and go out and do it. And I didn't really connect those two, I don't think, until later. But when I heard about an enlightened city, I said, we got to build it. Let's build it. Because see, an enlightened city is a place that radiates so much coherence, so much harmony. And I mean, we all feel energy of different types of buildings. You walk by an old dirty bar, it feels one way. You go by a children's school, and it just has a wonderful feeling to it, you know. churches, different things, they all have their own feeling. Temples, they just radiate a feeling, you know. Well, an enlightened city employs that sort of technology with scientific mathematical precision. And the idea of an enlightened city radiates so much of that harmony, coherence, that unified field value, that transcendental value, that Chaitanya value, that divinity value, that it is enough to take care of an entire continent, an entire nation. And what it does is there's a principle of mapping I talked about. So it connects, uh, in this case, Mount Soma with the United States. And so as we increase the coherence and harmony and intelligence and divinity of Mount Soma, it radiates that value to the entire United States and heals the country. And there's a mapping there. It's an interconnection. And I'll be real honest, at the time, I didn't really think about the fact that it went both ways, you know, so that the chaos and the disharmony and the discord in the country is felt in Mount Soma, you know, and that was a wake-up call for me, and it was amazing. And I mean, here it almost gets so surreal. It's almost like sci-fi. If I wrote a book about the details of it, I don't think people even believe it. You know, whatever was going on in our nation, you could see a mapping, a correlation going on in Mount Soma. And the principle there is that, and this is well known for people who know about building Shiva temples. Shiva temples, to build a Shiva temple, you come up against tremendous obstacles. The reason being because positive attracts negative. And so when the positivity grows from the construction and the building and the operation of a Shiva temple, negativity attacks, you know? And boy, did we experience that. And the stories around it, you wouldn't believe them. I mean, incredible, you know? And the correlations, remarkable. All the things that happen currently, just look back at the news in the past year or two, and the correlations were there, you know? But the idea is that as we increase the sattva, as we increase the coherence and harmony and the intelligence of Mount Soma, we radiate that value to the world, you know? And to me, that's something worth being devoted to. But there's a lot more to we haven't by any means completed the enlightened city yet. You know, there's a lot more to it. And I remember the Stapati was actually came to Mount Soma to see, you know, how our progress was going. And he came from India. He's in South India. And when he did, we took him down to the plot of land that we were going to do further development on to complete the enlightened city. And it was amazing, you know, because he stood there and he looked at the land. It's a pasture, you know, because we're going to need a lot of land to build. That's a big project, you know. And he looked out over it, and I was standing here, he was standing there, so he kind of turned his back to me to look at the land. He was looking, and then he turned and he rotated 360 degrees around, and he put his hands out like that. And when he came back to me, he had tears flowing down from his eyes. And he said, there's nothing like this anywhere in the world. And I said, well, you know, what about all these incredible temples in India, you know, in Thailand, there's that temple, you know, and everything. He said, no. He said, there's nothing like it anywhere in the world. And he said, oh, there's some incredible temples there and things like that. But an enlightened city is something different. And Angkor Wat perhaps was that one day, but it's not even in operation now. It's just ancient ruins in a way. And there's, because you see, there's a subtlety to how to even properly operate with Vedic precision an enlightened city, even a temple. And he said, no. And so at first I was kind of taken aback. And then I thought, and I said to him, you know why? And he could tell I had something on my mind. So he just kind of shook his head. And I said, Kali Yuga, you know, this is the age of ignorance. But it's also the time of transition from Kali Yuga to Sat Yuga. So it's a time, you see, when that transition, that construction of an enlightened city will be there to radiate out the coherence to help usher in that transition from Kali Yuga to Sat Yuga. And that's really the inspiration. It's kind of a long story to answer a simple question, but that's really the inspiration of Mount Soma. Now, another amazing thing that happened was Pandit Prasad. He was a South Indian Vedic pundit, highly, highly respected, not just a pundit, but pandacharya. He trained pundits, and didn't speak a word of English. But he heard about Mount Soma. And I mean, I understand people have told me that there were many people that wanted him to go to their temple. They offered him blank checks. They fill in whatever you want. We just want you to come. And none of them were right for him. And then I forget how I even found out about him, but we invited him. And sight unseen, he said he knew. He said that was it. Not even speaking English. He got his visa to come here. Got a green card, I guess, and his wife too, which is really, I guess, hard to do. But they both, no problem. They came here, and he learned English in 6 weeks. You might say, how in the world can anybody learn a language that fast? It's because he knows Sanskrit, and Sanskrit is the core. It's the source. It's the fundamental. It's the basis. It's a pure language. You see, it's foundational to all languages. And so I remember, well, we hit it off, Some of these stories are kind of, I don't know. But there was a mountain to the south of Mount Soma. And I always call it Mount Vishnu. It's Mount Vishnu. And so he and I were just getting to know each other, and he and I were walking down Mount Soma Boulevard in that direction. We looked up and he pointed the mountain. He said, that's Mount Vishnu. And I said, really? I said, how did you know that? I said, can you see that too? And he said, no. He said, but from what he knows about Vastu, that's Mount Vishnu, which I thought was incredible, And at any rate, to go on with the different stories of Mount Soma, at one point, the Kailash, the structure on top of the Shiva temple, there was a leak around it. So it was a big project, a big deal. We had to take it off and fix it and then put it back on. And to do that is a big, huge operation. Pundits had to come and all sorts of things. It's a whole technology, because all this stuff, that's the point. It's a technology. And the technology, that's one thing that my teacher taught me, and I was adamant about it. We have to do this thing properly. It's more precise. It has to be done with more precision than even building a cell phone. You can't just make up what you do, or you can't ad lib, or you can't say, well, that's too much work, so we'll do this instead. It has to be done with precision. The cell phone doesn't work. We've been very dedicated about Mount Soma in that same regard. I know when the Vedic architect came from India, he checked all the measurements and everything on the temple. He said this is the only temple he's ever been to where every measurement came out perfect. Everything has to be perfect. And then the thing, it's like a bell, if the bell is encrusted, you hit it and just thunks. But if it's constructed perfectly, you hit it and it rings. And so we did that. But then there was this leak. And so we had to fix it. And it was a big operation. I mean, lots of people come. It's a big ceremony. And it was a beautiful day. But listen to this. I mean, it's like a sci-fi. It's surreal. It's kind of like the movie Lost or something. It's like there's something going on here. And when they removed the Kailash, all of a sudden, from a beautiful day, it got cold. Almost felt like winter was setting in. I think it even started to hail. Certainly started to rain. And everybody there could feel it. It kind of what's like Vishnu from the mountain. You could feel this energy coming, like the cobras over his head kind of came and reached over all the way. It's miles away. I don't know how far it is, to kind of protect the temple. And then all around the periphery, you could feel it. You could sense it. You could see it, They were like these figures. And honestly, I didn't know what they were called at the time, but they went around 360 degrees in the horizon. They were like these black figures holding weapons, black, it's all black with white background. And it was like pandemonium like that. And all this is going on at once, and protecting the temple, until the cloche went back on, then the weather gets fine again. It was amazing. Um, so it's been a huge challenge. And, in Kali Yuga, they talk about, they're the Rakshasas, those are the bad guys, right? And there are Rakshasas that, in other yugas, in Sat Yuga, they dwell on another planet, and in another yuga, they dwell on another continent, and then in the next yuga, they dwell closer. But in Kali Yuga, where we are now, they dwell within people, and so that's where the negativity comes from, and positive attracts negativity. So it's really remarkable, and to witness that. I remember even before we started building the temple, it started, and I remember I was lying on my couch at home one Sunday afternoon, and I got a phone call, and somebody said, "Oh, I hear you closed the school and moved to Europe." And at the time, I found humor in that sort of thing, and I mean, it's just ridiculous. But rumors like that, they get started, they're part of it, and the more positivity we generate, the more negativity. And it's been heartbreaking, and but it's also been remarkable to witness, and it's certainly kind of, in kind of a backhanded kind of a way, I think it was a strong affirmation of the validity of the construction of Enlightened City and its power. It's happening. And we've seen, all sorts of things. I've, through my lectures through the years before we even bought the land for Mount Soma, I would talk about right-handed and left-handed tantra. A lot of people don't know about this. You have the Veda, which I guess you could say is kind of parallels physics in the sense that we're talking now. It's just the nature of nature. It's nature. And then you have right-handed tantra, which is like engineering, how to build things based on nature. And then you have left-handed tantra. Left-handed tantra it's kind of like taking dangerous shortcuts, inappropriate shortcuts, but you get fast results. Left-handed tantra is like if you take some aluminum foil and bunch it up. If you blew a fuse in your house and the lights go out, instead of running to the Lowe's or wherever and getting a fuse and coming back, you just take some aluminum foil and stick it in there. Boom, instant lights, quick results. But you can burn the house down. And so a lot of the things that are done these days are left-handed tantra. Because people want instant results, but, for that sort of thing, you pay in the long run, and so I warn about that. And so it's really kind of dismaying to see some people that were great, wonderful students and dedicated, and then all of a sudden some left-handed tantra thing comes along and they jump right in. And in a way, I can't blame them because it's almost, I guess, like some of these drugs. They say if you take this drug one time, you can become addicted instantly. Left-handed tantra is kind of like that, And also, it's the thing that we have a principle here: positive attracts negative. The more we build the positivity, the more negativity is going to attack it. As my teacher said, this was back around '84. I remember he said once very pensively, he said, when the blossom gets bigger, the thorns just naturally get bigger. So what to do about the thorns, So it's part of the process. That's the point. It's part of the process. So there's no judgment there, really. It's just what happens. And the solution for the individual, stay resolute, I remember when I was in the ashram, we used to playfully say positive, positive, always positive. It's important. It's important. Now, there's so many other things I could talk about, but this should be a book, and maybe it will be a book eventually. But I think the last thing I'd like to talk about is this idea of the gold linga. Pandit Prasad, our Pandit at the Sri Someshwar Temple, he and I were both really excited about this solid gold linga. In fact, his wife kind of smiled and kind of laughed at us a little bit. He said, when you talk about that, you're like two little kids, Because here's the thing, if you've ever read the Ramayana, there's a part of the Ramayana, Valmiki's Ramayana in particular, where he talks about the Sundar Kanda. It's a part of the Ramayana where, in the Ramayana, Lord Rama's wife Sita gets kidnapped by Ravana and taken to Lanka, Sri Lanka. And then there's a part there where Hanuman flies to Lanka in pursuit of Sita to find her. And, there's an interesting thing there because this is the Veda, it's ancient, but there's a part there where Hanuman when he's flying there, he says, well, if I went east, I'd find this. And it describes a body of water, then a continent, and this far, then you find this all the way around. And then if I go to the north, I find this. If I go to the west, I find this. If I go to the south, I find this. And to this day, you can look that up and it's all completely accurate. Cognized, but at any rate, then he goes to Lanka, and when he gets there, he's kind of quietly looking around, and it's beautiful. The palace, the grounds. You can even Sundara, next word Kanda, Kanda. Valmiki's Ramayana, you can look it up even online and read the verses, and it talks about the cities are like in clouds and diamonds and gem encrusted gold everywhere. But just if you read about it, it's just beautiful, And Pandit Prasad is emphatic about the point that the way all that got created was that Ravana worshipped a solid gold linga every day. Now, gold is Lakshmi, and I've talked before about the Rudra Shake, the Sri Rudram, and how the linga, that's Shiva, and Rudra is the form of Shiva. Shiva is pure transcendent, kind of like Chaitanya, just pure transcendent. But as that Shiva value emerges into relativity, it's what we call Rudra. Rudra is the destroyer of ignorance. A lot of times people say, oh, Shiva's the destroyer. That's terrible. No. He's the destroyer of ignorance. He's the destroyer of impurity. The point being, you're already divine. The problem isn't building divinity. The problem is unobscuring the divinity that you already are, which is your identities, and we've talked about all that at length. But Lakshmi, Lakshmi is like the goddess of abundance, prosperity on all levels. She can be compared to like that perfect spring or summer day when everything is lush, the trees are beautiful, the flowers are blooming, the air is fresh and sweet, everything is just perfect, And so that's the solid gold value. Lakshmi is gold. And so when you do these ceremonies to a solid gold Shiva linga, it unifies both, and all that power that's Shiva and all the divinity and exquisiteness that's Lakshmi all merge together and radiate out of value where abundance on every level. And that's how Ravana built Lanka, built his palace, built his kingdom, And so Pandit Prasad has already started doing the chants, the pujas and things for the gold linga. Already got it going. And only a couple of weeks ago, we started raising money for it. And we're already well over halfway there in just a couple of weeks. And if I would encourage you, we don't even say donate, we say participate, because what Pandit Prasad, and this is incredible, he said anybody that donates, that participates, in the purchase of that solid gold linga will receive the blessings of that true every single day in perpetuity. When, years from now, whatever pundit is at Mount Soma will continue to do it. And if you go to srisameshwara.org, or you can go to michaelmamas.net, either one, and look at the blog there about the gold linga. But if you go to srisameshwara.org, it's right there at the top. Click here to participate or whatever. You click there and then go to a donation page. It's in increments of $108. I would encourage everyone to at least do the $108. Some people are doing, multiples 5 times, 10 times, what have you. But at least one increment, $108 donation, and you could say your name and family, so it cover your whole family that way. Certainly, more is better. I even asked Panditji, somebody asked me to ask Pandit Prasad, and it's interesting, you ask a Pandit question, and what they do first is they chant the part of the Veda that addresses it, and then they translate it, and somebody asked the question, well, if I donate twice as much, do I get twice the benefits, or how does that work? And I asked him, and he chanted. I said, I'll check. And I asked him, and he chanted that part of the Veda, and then he said, yeah. He said, just common sense, really, But at least just get connected to it, One donation, $108. Anybody can afford that. And I really encourage you to do it, because before long, once we get all the money, then that's going to be closed. You're not going to have the opportunity to do it. In 2 weeks, and I only talked about it once or twice on podcasts, but now we're advertising it on the temple website, and so don't get whipsawed out. I'd really encourage you to just jump on board with that. It's a huge opportunity, and it'll bring that value, that prosperity, that abundance of the Shiva value, the Lakshmi value to your life in perpetuity, and so take advantage of that, I'd say. All right, well, Adrian, anything else? What did I leave out about the history of Mount Soma, or even your own experience of it? Or is there anything
I
you
think
felt
you covered the history really well. You kind of did the quick review of some of the stories, which I also think are cool, but I think you've touched on some of those before, and I'm sure you will in the future too. But, when Mount Soma, when the temple was consecrated, the values of the transcendent, really, I mean, the values of that, I don't even know how to describe it. Something was there that was not there before.
It's a great point. You were there for that, right?
I was there for that.
Yeah, it's a huge thing.
Huge thing.
11 pundits are there, and they're doing chants and mantras, and we set up extra Havan Kunds, and they're just going all day, all night, for days. Yeah. And you can feel it. It's unbelievable,
Yeah, the quality of the place became imbued with a presence and an energy that's just inexplicable, and I already felt that there's something just about the land, like you said, where you put the entrance gate to Mount Soma seems to really be a demarcation of something, because you're driving at the mountain. And it does get sweeter, though, as you even go towards it. And I don't know if that's that Pavlovian response, you're getting closer to your reward, so to speak. So I feel a sweetness as I go up the mountain, but then you cross that barrier, and there is that something. And
I have to say, I agree with that 100%. I really do. I don't think it's imagination.
No.
If you're looking for it or not, you go through that gate, and it's like, oh, wow, And we've had people, and I think I've talked about this before, but people come here, they don't know anything about Mount Soma. They're just going for a random Sunday drive. And they've stopped people going for walks on the side of the road. And they'll stop in their car and they say, what is this place?
Yeah.
What's going on? Even construction people have commented, I mean, there's something about it. And then I didn't even mention that when we installed the Hanuman Murti, the big statue of Hanuman, uh, I think I talked about this in another podcast, didn't I, Adrian? Do you know? I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning one of those nights, and there was this light that came around Mount Vishnu and came around and landed. I think it was maybe 100, 200 yards tops from my back of my house.
Yeah.
And then the next night I saw the same light going this way, and it's like, and then other people, I can think of at least 2 other people have seen that same light at other times, and every single time anybody's seen it, they say, "Well, what? I saw something." You know, they think, "What is it? A UFO or what?" But
Yeah.
Mount Soma is definitely drawing some incredibly profound and beautiful things.
It really is. It
Yeah.
really is. And so there's that barrier from normal daily life to that value that it's just so sweet. And you cross that barrier, the gate, and then as you go in, after like I said, there was the building of the temple and all of that. And even just as that was being built, there was something becoming very lively. But then at the consecration, boom, something
you're
locked
right.
in.
You're
And it
right.
was
Yeah.
powerful
Now in 2023,
and just tangible,
yeah, in 2023, you redo all those ceremonies every so often, just to kind of recharge it all. And so in 2023, we're going to be doing that again with all the pundits and everything. Put it on your calendar. We don't have the date yet or anything, but we're thinking 2023 is when it'll happen, and that would be something worth attending.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Something there.
Anything else? I think that's about it.
That's it.
Yeah. I know I'm going to end this podcast. I'm going to say, "Oh, gee, I forgot to talk about this. Forgot to talk about that." But when I told Punnaji, Punna Prasad, that we were going to be doing, the Mount Soma story, he said, "Well, you should write a book." He said, "You should have it in a book, and then we can keep the book in the student union for people to read." And we do need to do that. Is a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that's it for now. And please, I'm not asking for me. Every single penny goes straight into the gold linga. Nobody gets anything from it other than the benefits of the gold linga, 100%. And it's a worthwhile investment. It's something you really should do for yourself, for your family, and for the world, Okay, take care and thanks for listening.